Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the End Zone Scoop podcast. I am your host for this week, Dana O'Gorman. Now, Liz is not with us, so you're left with just me and Shona, right? And you know that we love to talk, so we'll probably fill this time very well. But thank you so much for joining us on the End Zone Scoop. I want to start with something that I have nothing to do with, and yet I'm insanely proud of. Our dear darling Shona this weekend, while half of London, most of London was at the football game, the NFL game, which we're going to talk about. The other part of England was at the Manchester Derby, which that was just kind of crazy too. But Shona, our darling Shona, was running the London Marathon. Shona, I am so proud of you. That is crazy.
I always knew 26 miles was a long way, but see when you're running it, you're like, oh my God, it is a damn long way.
Yeah. Yes, dear. Yes, it is.
I've done halves before, and I've always thought that's a really long run. But the first 13 miles I felt like it was like a breeze. I was like, this is so good. I feel so amazing. And then by the time I got to 15, 16, I was feeling really ill, like I was saying to you before. And I was like, I still have 10 miles to go. This is just so long. But the good thing is that the crowds are absolutely amazing. I had my name on my t-shirt. They were constantly cheering my name the whole way around. Andy and my mom were there as well, so they went to certain spots. So it was just really nice. And I had my friends follow me on the app, because London Marathon's got an app where you can track people, and they were like, just 5 miles to go, keep going, just think what you're doing it for, all this stuff. It was so nice to have everyone's support behind me. And I finished under my goal of under 5 hours. And yeah, now I'm hanging out my marathon trainers. That's enough. Done.
Been there, done that, over it. I am just so insanely proud of you. I have known a handful of other people who've run marathons, and the prep that goes into it is just crazy. But the determination to actually do it and finish it, it's insane, Shona. I'm just so proud of you. And it's just one more thing that you can do it all, girl. You just do it all. When you set your mind to something, it's like, oh, I have this degree. Don't care. I'm going to go be a nurse. I want to do this. I want to do that. I love that about you, that you just find a goal. It's very, very impressive. So everyone go onto Shona's Twitter and give her a clap for finishing the London Marathon. I love it. I did find it interesting. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, do I have a new goal now? I want to do a half marathon in under 2 hours. So my PB is 2 hours 7. So that's my next goal, to knock off that 7
I thought you
minutes.
just said you were hanging them up. Oh, you're just not going to do marathons anymore.
Oh, no, just not marathons anymore. I'll just do halves instead. Just a wee 13 miles.
Just a little bit. Just a smidge. No, thank you. No, I'm going to live vicariously through you on that one, because this one is not running that far. No, thank you. It did find it interesting, though, that they had the marathon the same day as the NFL game, unless they thought that the roads were going to be empty. So why not? I thought that was interesting. And then the same day as the Manchester Derby, for any Americans that don't know who are listening to us, that is Manchester United, Manchester City play each other in soccer, or their British football. I just thought it was an interesting, very full day, to put it all together.
Well, that's normally not the case. They don't normally do the marathon in October. The marathon's normally in April. But it's been off track because of COVID. So they obviously postponed it in 2020. There was no big marathon event. And they had it in October 2021. And then because it was October 21, they decided to have it in October 2022. Just for logistics and the planning. Because they wanted to try and make it as normal as possible for in 2023. So there will never be an occasion again where there's the marathon and the NFL on it. Because I'm telling you, it is the busiest I've ever seen London in my life. I was walking across Westminster Bridge, and I felt like I was having to elbow people just to get through. And I was like, come on, I have 26 miles to do tomorrow. Get out of the way.
Get out. I have a job to do. Oh my. Well, I was going to ask you, because the London Games now, they've been going on for a number of years now. And of course, it went from 1 to 2 to 3 now. Are they still as huge as they were at the beginning? I know that the NFL makes a huge deal out of it. And I know it was really cool at first for, all those, the UK fans and the European fans. I mean, all over. They come from all over for these games. Is it still that big of a deal?
I think this year, because they're having one in Germany and one in Mexico, I feel like there's a lot more excitement around their games than the London games. I know that the Packers are coming this weekend, so that's a huge
That'll be
draw.
crazy.
I think London this weekend coming up will be 10 times busier than it was for the NFL last week. Um, I know that Tottenham have built like this NFL purpose stadium, and that is really cool, like for the London games. But I think logistically, it becomes quite a nightmare for people to get out to if they're staying in Central. Like the travel from the stadium afterwards, when all the fans are leaving, can be really difficult. Some people were jumping in taxis, and buses weren't arriving, and I think that kind of takes away from the atmosphere, because Wembley was in Twickenham were quite easy to get to in terms of like public
Very.
transport. Where and obviously there still is a Wembley game coming up at the end of the month, but I've never been to Tottenham myself, and people haven't made me want to go either. Like,
Right.
if that makes
Right.
sense. Haven't been like, oh, it's been so amazing, you should go. Like they were saying that it was £6.50 for a can of Guinness in the ground. Like,
Yeah, we're used to that here. You know,
I'm
it's
like,
$10 for a beer at a stadium here. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, that's
I mean,
normal
well,
for
I'm a stingy
Americans.
Aberdonian, so I'm like, no.
You're like, no,
I'm not
no, thank you.
I'm not paying £6.50 for Guinness. So yeah, I think the pool is still there. I just don't think there's as much talk about it because it's been going on in London for so long. But I think there's generally a lot more excitement for the Germany games if they continue, and also the Mexico game as well.
I have been to London for a game once, and it was at Wembley, and it was insanely easy. It was insanely easy to get there. It was insanely easy to leave. I mean, it was this mass sea of people, but it was just really fun. It was, that would be good. But the interesting thing about it was, is that everyone was just so excited. It didn't matter what jersey you had on. I love that kind of carnival feel, that kind of festival feel that it has. And that was really good. And I think that maybe some of that is wearing off now too, because it is just getting more and more expensive to go. Germany game is insane. And I'm going to Germany for this game. I'm very excited. It is going to be chaos. And so it'll be interesting to see if I get that feel again, that same, which I'm sure I will, especially it being a Seahawks game. There was a tweet that went out, and they had done this huge poll across Europe about what the most popular teams were in different countries. And the entire country of Germany just has a giant Seahawk over the top of it. And so I think it's going to be really fun to kind of get that feel. And then to add Tom Brady to that mix will be a lot of fun. I agree. So I'm excited about that. But I was just, because it is kind of becoming more common, I was just wondering if that was kind of dying out. They got a great game. I mean, let's give them that. You know, it was an interesting game, and the Vikings seem to play there a lot. They are super popular in Europe. The Vikings are, and so they get a lot of fans there. And then the Saints. The game I went to at Wembley was the Saints and the Dolphins, and those Saints fans are diehard over there for sure. They dress full out. It's awesome. I loved every minute of it. So it'll be good. So this week the Packers head to London. I don't even know who they're playing. Who are they playing?
Oh, they are playing. Hold on, let me tell you. It's
Isn't
somewhere.
that terrible? All we've heard about is the Packers are finally going. They are the last NFL team to play in Europe.
They
They've
are
waited a long time.
playing the Giants.
Is it the Giants? Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That's a bit of a whims popple, isn't it? Like, not it's not, you know, you're hoping like for it's just
Yeah. I don't know if we're getting that. I mean, they would have to send over the Ravens and or somebody this year, but so it'll be good. Yeah. Yes, all those diehard Packers fans, all those Aaron Rodgers fans will finally get to lay eyeballs on him, probably for the only time at this point. So I don't know how they've managed to get away with not having to go over for so long, but so it'll be fun. And I think that'll be good. And then of course the Jaguars game later in the year. So it'll be exciting for all those fans. I like the London games. I like the Europe games. It gives me a reason to go over there. It's like,
yeah, I'm just going to say to you, like, as you mentioned about, did you remember how many Germans were over for the Seahawks game in London?
Oh my God. It was crazy.
So this is going to be like huge.
I honestly, and all of our listeners out there, I don't know that you grasp what we're saying. This is like the Vikings in the Scandinavian countries, right? Like this is the German fans are insane, diehard Seahawks fans. And I don't care. I mean, we're going to talk about divisional rankings and the surprises we're getting out of the Seahawks this year. But you have Tom Brady So then you have those diehard football fans, and then you have the Seahawks, which are the crazy fans in Germany. That game is going to be off the hook. I'm so excited. And I know a ton of people that are going. So it should be it'll be fun for sure.
We have a good question actually from one of our listeners. I don't know about this.
I don't know. I would assume, to be honest with you, I would assume they'd change somewhat allegiance. I mean, yes, they've probably been fans for a long time, but at the same time, if you finally get your own, I don't know.
Because I think it'd be the Jaguars. I'm not supporting the Jaguars. I'm sorry, I'm just not. Just not happening.
Hey, Trevor
Sorry,
Lawrence is pretty good.
Just no.
They're pretty good this year. Here's the thing about it is that I've talked about this at length on other podcasts, and I think we even talked about it quite a bit on this podcast last year. The logistics of London getting an NFL team is very difficult, and it doesn't make a ton of sense. And you would have long stretches of time without a home game because the London team would have to come over here and then city hop to get all their games in. Then you'd have to have other teams going over there. It would be very, very difficult. I don't know that it's actually a possibility. I'm sure the NFL has tried 6 ways to Sunday to figure out how to do it, but I just don't know that logistically it would work out. But I would assume if London had their own team, that some of those fans would be like, okay, now I'm in. Or you would start to pull new fans in because they had, some consistent play over there. So that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think new fans definitely more than switching. Maybe some would switch, but
right. Yeah. I don't know. I have a friend who, was like, if for MLS, she was a Sporting Kansas City fan because, we live here and we love them. And she didn't really watch it all that much, but she was a supporter. And then the minute David Beckham got involved in Miami, all of a sudden she's wearing all this Miami stuff because of David Beckham. And I said, no, we are done. We are done. You can no longer come to soccer games with me. God love her. She's great. All right. I know. All right. So let's switch to a bit of a more serious topic. And it's something that is going to be talked about ad nauseum. I mean, this is going to be debated and argued for the rest of this season. And we are talking about the concussion issues with Miami Dolphins starting quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. I always say it wrong and I apologize profusely. There's a lot of questions. There were in his game, not this week, not last Thursday. I guess it's almost been 2 weeks ago now. 2 weeks ago, he hit his head, got up, was very wobbly. They took him back. Concussion protocol cleared. They said it was his back and his ankle or something. Let him back into the game. Then on the Thursday night game, took a nasty thump to the head, and it was nasty thump. Instantly did posturing, which anyone in the medical field knew instantly. I gasped the minute I saw him, and my husband was like, "What is wrong?" I'm like, "That's posturing. That's horrible." And that's when his hands, they come up, they make funny. It's basically a seizure. And so, with some variances, but it's not good. It's not good. It's really bad. Took him off. Apparently he's taken to the hospital, completely cleared. MRI looks good. And that is all 100% possible with a head injury. That doesn't mean he's fine. So that has brought in a lot of conversation, a lot of anger out of some players, a lot of conversation between the NFLPA and the NFL. This was hugely disturbing to me, Shona. I'm not going to lie.
I sincerely was questioning him coming back in the Bills game. I was like, he'll be out for the rest of the game. There's no way he's coming back. And then he did come back. And I was like, okay. And then Thursday that happened. And I was just, so disturbed by it. And I feel like, I don't know the background story, obviously, but I feel like Miami were so determined to beat the Bills that they thought it was only going to be with Tua playing in center. And I'm sorry, they could actually have cost this guy his career. Like, it could be so bad that he might not be able to play ever again because of winning one game against the Bills. Like how important is beating the Bills to not having your quarterback for potentially the rest of the season, or you having to find a completely new guy altogether because this guy can no longer play. It was so disturbing to see him like that. He's this young guy. He's obviously just following whatever, or even if Tua did ask to play as well. Like, there was an incident. This is where it's very different with the NFL and like professional football over here, like soccer over here. A guy got a Scotland player got hit in the head last week against Ukraine, and he was saying to his doctor, I'm fine, let me play. And the doctor was like, no, I'm not letting you play. You're coming off now, and we're going through the concussion protocol, and you're not getting to play. And he wasn't available to play for the last game either. So they were very careful with him, and that you have to be in these situations. You have to be careful, even if the player is telling you blue in the face, like, I can go back and play. They shouldn't be going back to play if there's a head knock.
I do think. So the NFL a few years back, I can't even remember how many years ago, the NFL decided to help kind of mitigate the question of, is the team pushing a player to come back, or does a player's will winning out over medical advice? They brought in these independent neurologists, right? And they brought them in. They're not affiliated with the team. They're not affiliated with the NFL, to evaluate these players. But what I found out this week during all of this hoopla was that those independent neurologists work hand in hand with the team doctor. Now, what conversations happen with that? I don't know. I would just think that if you have a team doctor saying he's fine, and the player's like, I'm fine, that pressure would eventually could possibly weigh his decision. Because who wants to be the hated guy in the room, right? Like, I mean, I get it. And we are talking millions of dollars here. So there's a lot of pressure in this. So then I begin to wonder, well, how independent are they? And if, how closely are they working with these teams? The other thing is sometimes, and this is something that Lisa, who works with me over at Our Turf Football, and she's a diehard Miami fan. She's like, at sometimes you have to save the player from themselves. And that is where someone has to step in. And maybe it's not these doctors because they argue with the doctors. Maybe it's the coach. Maybe it's another player that comes in and says, what are you doing? And maybe he did have a back issue. Maybe he was having back spasms. Maybe he could play that off for that, or that's what they decided caused it. But what's interesting to me is, and I read this on Twitter, so it's not 100% verified or anything, but from a pretty reliable source, that he has cleared almost all the hurdles to actually play again. Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, is like, no, he's on concussion protocol, but he cleared his MRI. He's cleared some other things. When I saw that on that field, I assumed his season was done.
Yeah,
but there's a very high chance he will be back on the field sooner than later. And I think that's where the NFLPA is now going to start stepping in. Shona, you said that they were looking at changes.
Yeah, so they, along with the NFL, have agreed that, the concussion protocol, there needs to be enhancements made to ensure player safety. Obviously, there's still a review ongoing, but essentially that changes to the protocol were going to be likely.
And they did fire that doctor.
Yeah, but then there's also this notion of, is he just the fall guy? Because
that's the question.
Because he did make that decision, but someone has to take the rack for it. And in Miami's not going to say it's them, and Tua's not going to say it was him. Right. So it's just he's to me, it kind of just feels like he was gonna go regardless. I don't know what's going to happen, but something does need to happen, because that was scary. That could be worse next time he gets hit.
Oh, for gosh, yeah. And this is the interesting thing. We see a lot of players starting to retire early. We saw, Andrew Luck retired early. There was, who was it? Was it a Panthers player? He retired very early. There's quite a few people, like high-level players, that have decided to retire early. And this is exactly why. They want to actually be able to function in their older life. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on that and how it develops throughout the year. All right, so let's move on. We wanted to talk about the divisional standings. Okay, so we're 4 games in, and it's kind of well known that teams start to settle into who they are between games 4 and 6, and really start to feel, although some teams have lost half of their team to injury already. Oh my God, the injuries this week were crazy. But I wanted to take a look at these conferences, and I was going to find out if you had any surprises. So let's start with the AFC. So the AFC East, we have the Dolphins at 3-1, the Bills are 3-1. The Jets are 2-2, and the Patriots are 1-3. I wasn't surprised that the Dolphins beat the Bills, because that's always a tough game, especially as of late. But the one thing that does surprise me in this division, is the fact that the Jets are 2-2, because I didn't expect that at all, and that the Patriots are 1-3. I really expected a larger jump from the Patriots this year. Is there anything in the AFC East that surprises you?
I would completely agree with the Patriots. Although I thought they were really unlucky on Sunday to lose. I think the Chiefs losing to the Colts was a big surprise. I don't know where that came from.
Right.
Anyway,
We'll get to that division in a minute. Yeah.
But this, yeah, it's going to flip flop. But it depends when Tua comes back. Now, I thought it was going to flip flop between the Bills and the Dolphins to who was going to be top of that division. But yeah, the Patriots being bottom is quite surprising. And I quite like Mac Jones. I think he's a good fit for that system. And I think eventually they will come good. It just might take a couple of more seasons.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Usually players make a big jump between years 1 and 2, but quarterbacks sometimes take just a little bit longer. I mean, Jalen Hurts, perfect example of that, right? Like, this year's his massive year. We're going to talk about them in a minute. AFC North, we have the Browns at 2-2. Yeah, I made the face. Go ahead, people. I made the face. Yes, I did.
No, I also made the face.
Yeah. We have the Bengals at 2-2, the Ravens at 2-2, and the Steelers at 1-3. I knew this division would be hard. I knew that they play each other very well. I did not expect the Ravens to be in third place, even though they're tied at 2-2. And I did not expect the Browns to be at the top of that division, because I just didn't expect much from this, because I didn't want to expect much from this team. But, they're doing okay. It's just gross. Sorry.
I was hoping they wouldn't. Then, like, when Watson came in, it would be like, well, he's gonna have to really try hard. And but no, unfortunately, they are doing all right. That tastes like really bitter in your mouth to say, doesn't it?
I know it does. But the Bengals, after kind of a really slow start, have found their footing again and starting to look like the team that we thought they would be. So that's super exciting. All right, AFC South, we have the Jaguars sitting on top. Who called that? Nobody called that. The Jaguars sitting at 2-2, the Titans 2-2, the Colts 1-2. The Texans are now the only winless team in the league at 0-3. I don't think that surprises anyone. We knew that the Texans were really going to struggle this year. I do like Davis Mills. I think that he will eventually get better. And I think this team, behind that, fantastic. Their rookie running back, Pierce, is just a monster. And if they can build a team around him, they will be very lucky. The Titans, this division was always kind of a toss-up to me. It just depended on if Doug Peterson could get the Jags playing properly, and they have. I mean, they look really good. But that Colts team, I had predicted the Colts winning this division, and sitting at 1-2, they look like a mess. Granted, they are now going to get some players back, but still, Matt Ryan was not the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a bit sorry for him in a way, because he was like, "Oh, Joe, I'm going to leave the Falcons. I'm going to create a new name for myself at the Colts." And you're like, "Oh, honey, you're not doing that. You're creating a name for yourself for sure, but not the name that you wanted. Absolutely not."
It's so true. And I like Matt Ryan. This is just kind of what happens with older quarterbacks when they leave. But it was disappointing for me, because I really expected kind of a lot from them, especially, with the playmakers that they have. All right, AFC West, last one. The Chiefs sitting at 3-1, the Chargers 2-2, the Broncos at 2-2, and the Raiders at 1-3. I will say that the Chiefs being 3-1 is only shocking to me because they lost to the Colts. I don't even know.
Yes.
You know what? That is the perfect example of a trap game. And if you guys don't know what a trap game is, that's a game where a team has already decided they're going to win it without trying to work too hard for it, and it comes back and bites them in the ass. And that's exactly what happened with that Colts game, if you ask me. But otherwise, it makes sense. The Chargers being at 2-2 is exciting because of the laundry list of injuries that they have. The list goes on forever. I feel bad for Broncos fans for a couple of reasons. One, they had such high hopes, and they had set in their mind they were going straight to the Super Bowl and winning this division. And I understood the optimism. But couple that with poor play on a lot of the players, including Melvin Gordon. I know there's a lot of Broncos fans really mad at him for all those fumbles. But you marry that with now the injuries that they lost their first round running back. I mean, they lost their running back, then they lost they I can't even begin to tell you how many players that they have lost injury. And so it doesn't look bright for them. But believe it or not, I think the day that it looks bright for the Raiders. I know they've only won one game, and we're going to talk about them because there is a question about the Raiders from our fans later, or from our listeners, but they looked really good in this game. And I think we're going to see actually who the Raiders are going to become soon. So the AFC West, who we talked, Shona, we talked forever about how this, but the best division in football, is looking like it's going to get run away with the Chiefs again.
Yeah, I was excited about this. We just
Me
talked
too.
about it in preseason, and yeah, obviously, yeah, the Chiefs again are gonna clearly run away with it. But and I think they've learned their lesson from that Colts game. I think they have. You got to go in and prepare to win every game, and they clearly didn't. The Broncos, I'm kind of smug about it a wee bit. And also the fans are quickly turning on poor Russell Wilson. Because I saw a tweet because he swapped shirts with Carr at the end of the game. Obviously, the Raiders won, and they were like, "You would have never seen John Elway and Peyton Manning smiling at the end of a loss." I'm like, damn, poor Russell. Like, he doesn't really need that. He's showing good sportsmanship. But yeah, I think that's what you get when they expect a lot because they paid a lot for Russell. They're guaranteeing him a lot of money, and at the moment, that offense is just not delivering.
No, it is not, and neither is that head coach. So we're going to have to see how that pans out a little bit. All right, switching over to the NFC. We're going to start with the East. Those Eagles. We're going to talk about them in listener questions too. But they are 4-0. They are undefeated. They look fantastic. God love Jalen Hurts. Then you have the Cowboys sitting at 3-1 without Dak Prescott, which is real surprising to me and has been quite a conversation as of late, with Cooper Rush being their backup quarterback and how well he has played. You have the Giants sitting at 3-1. I think they're going to win a game this year, people. Like, I'm not even lying. And the key is Saquon Barkley, without question. And then you have the Commanders sitting at 1-3, which surprises no one. What is more surprising to you in this division? The fact that the Giants are 3-1, or the fact that the Cowboys are 3-1 without Dak Prescott?
Both. Both, really. Yeah, because I did not. I'm still not a massive lover of Daniel Jones. I don't really get him or understand him. But that is solely down to Barkley, and if they lose him, then they're going to quickly lose a lot of games. Because he essentially is their offense. He's the one that's making it tick at the moment. Obviously, Jerry Jones had this big spiel about how he wants a competitive go at quarterback between Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott when Dak Prescott comes back. But I'm pretty sure most of our Cowboy listeners or fans will prefer Dak to be the quarterback when he comes back, as one of the listener comments says here. But yeah, I'm surprised at both, to be honest. I'm not surprised at the Eagles. Correct. They are, oh my God, hot. Like, they are like, and I love Hurts. I think he's brilliant. He's one of the best draft picks, I think, from that draft class in quarterbacks, in my opinion. I'm sure other people would disagree with me.
Others will disagree, but let them disagree. Who cares? It's hard not to argue that right now. They look fantastic. They look great. Has one of my favorite NFL players on that team. I love Jason Kelce. Yeah, Jason, not Travis. I love Jason Kelce. And I think that it's just, they're a really fun team, and they are just bowling over people. It's just real fun. All right, NFC North, you have the Vikings at 3-1, Packers at 3-1, Bears at 2-2. Well done, Chicago. And the Lions at 1-3. I'll tell you this. The fact that the Vikings are 1-3 makes no sense to me. That team does not look good. It doesn't look good. 3-1. Sorry. Yes, 3-1. Yeah. I don't think they should be 1-3. Here's the thing with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins is a pendulum. He will make these amazing plays, and then turn around and make the most boneheaded thing I've ever like I don't there's no consistency with him. It is completely confusing to me. He forgot that, Justin Jefferson even existed for 2 games. Like he's your number I don't understand the Vikings, but they're managing to squeak out these wins. Give them credit for it, I guess.
I mean, I call him Captain Beige because he is.
I know you do. Captain Beige. I love it.
Like he's a kind of quarterback that keeps you from drafting a new one when you're like, actually, we need a new quarterback. Like this is your conundrum you don't want.
He's just good enough. Just good enough every time.
Enough. He's not gonna. I mean, he's never gonna win you a Super Bowl. It's not. The Viking fans. It's not gonna happen. I'm sorry. Kirk Cousins will never lift that Lombardi trophy. Just accept now. But he's also stopping you from drafting a good quarterback.
Fair. God, yeah, isn't that true? The Packers are basically who we thought they were. The Bears have been impressive, winning 2-2. I mean, I had them winning 2 all year, so I think that that's pretty impressive. I still think Justin Fields has a lot of development that needs to kind of go on. And then the Lions, we all love that team, and they just keep losing by this much. So it'll turn, Lions fans. It will turn for sure. All right, NFC South. The Buccaneers are sitting at 2-2. Falcons at 2-2. Falcons?
Yeah, I don't
know. 2-2?
I don't know.
Weird. Panthers 1-3. The Saints 1-3. I think we have to take a minute to talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady finally had a decent fantasy football. I know people don't care about fantasy football, but Tom Brady finally had a decent fantasy football game this last week. And what that equates to is the offense clicking. It has taken forever. He looks... I'm sorry, Brady fans. He looks old. He looks slow. He looks tired. He looks like, excuse my language, his give a shit is gone. Like he just doesn't care. And I know he does. I'm not accusing him of, not something, but the Brady spark is missing for me. Is it just because I'm not a huge Tom Brady fan, or he just looks meh. He looks like Captain Beige.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just my Beyonce's just making an appearance in the background. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I find him off this year too, and I briefly spoke about it with some people, and I was wondering. I mean, he doesn't listen to the background noise anyway. He isn't a huge listening to the media and stuff, but I think this year is maybe getting into a wee bit because it's not just about him playing and how old he is. It's about his personal life, and I don't know, not feeling it this year. He should have stayed retired. Like, why did he come back?
Yep, he should have gone out as the GOAT without a down year ever, and this, unfortunately, I think it's going to end up being a down year for them. The Saints look like a different team without Sean Payton as their head coach. And that's nothing against Dennis Allen. I like Dennis Allen, but they're struggling in a couple spots. And that could be because of Jameis's injury, but Andy Dalton looked okay. I mean, it's just that's too bad. I actually really like that franchise. And so I want them to do well, but not next week. I don't want them to do well. Okay. So then we're down to the NFC West. This damn division, I swear, the entire division is 2-2. All of them. And I put this on Twitter last night. I'm going to say it again. If you would have told me the last week of preseason that the Seahawks would have the exact same record as the entire rest of the division by week 4, I would have laughed in your face. But here we are. It is the weirdest division this year.
It's like somebody's gone, oh, let's make this witching hour permanently in the NFC West. And they just don't really know what to do with themselves. There was the Rams have never been able to beat the 49ers, and now now the 49ers are sitting top of the division. And this is without Trey Lance. This is with Jimmy G, and there's a big, massive loving again for this week. It'll be topsy-turvy with Jimmy G for the rest of the season. I can feel it already.
For sure.
And the Cardinals, I'm still not convinced by Cliff Kingsbury. I'm still not convinced by Kyler Murray that much either. They're playing the Panthers, so that should be an easy win. You should be beating the Panthers. The Seahawks, I have no idea what is going on.
What the hell? I don't even know.
I don't even know. I don't know. I'm like, who is this Geno Smith? Like, could we that we did not expect to be scoring 4 to 8 points? Where's he
You
arrived
know,
from?
he is the highest completion rating of any.
Right. So
I got
sad.
into it with a guy on Twitter last night because I said if I had put out that tweet about I would have laughed in your face, and someone said, what would you have said about Geno Smith being the best quarterback in the division? And this guy comes on and he's like, but he's not. I'm like, oh, but he is. Go
He
look at the
is.
stats right now. Geno
He's
Smith is the
actually
best
top ranked.
quarterback in the NFC West. What? What is that? And then the defense, 32nd, horrid, absolutely horrible, which is the complete opposite of the Seahawks that we're used to. So I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. I'm thrilled about the win, but this team, but isn't it fun? And this is just a little personal side note for me. I got real bored with Seattle over the last couple of years because we did the exact same thing over and over and over again. And as a Seahawks fan, I was not having it. It was just so boring. And this year, I love that Pete Carroll's like, screw it, why not? He admitted the 2 challenges were just a stall. Like he didn't care. Like it just cracked me up so much. And it's like nobody cares because they know that it's just all about next year. And it's so much more fun to watch. Win or
I think it's
lose, they're
you're
just
right.
so
I
much
was gonna
more
say
fun.
it's quite fun. Everyone's just kind of like having fun this season. And like I think they're genuinely happy for Geno as well, because I feel like he's good enough to be a backup quarterback at another team or even with the Seahawks
Even a
next year.
starter. Mm-hmm.
Even a starter, but just not in Seattle. He is good enough for that, and I want him to do well enough this year to get that position for him. I just don't want him to do so good that we miss out on a.
I don't think. I think that Seattle will stick with the plan of getting a new quarterback next year. I really
Yeah.
do. I don't
Also,
think that this will change that, but
maybe the Broncos will do so badly that their pick will get us a good spot.
we can hope. Oh my gosh, be crazy. But I will say this too: the Rams absolutely snake by injuries. This team is not who they could be simply because of injuries. I think last night they said that they were on one of their like 4th and 5th stringers on their offensive line. So I mean that's why there were 7 sacks in that game for Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford being maybe injured, not quite himself, is not helping. So I feel bad for Rams fans right now. Their defense still is good, although they let some huge plays go by. Although nice hit on that fan, Bobby Wagner. Holy cow, that was hilarious, and I loved every second of it. But yeah, so this division is just I don't want to say it's up for grabs because it's not. San Francisco, their defense is probably going to end up winning in this division, but it's so fun.
I think that fan was actually doing a gender reveal, and I'm like, how much did you need to find out the gender of your baby to get tackled by Bobby Wagner?
No, I'd wear it as a badge of honor. I'd be like, Bobby Wagner laid me out on the field. I think
I feel like guess what? I don't care.
Forever.
Baby's about to be born, but Bobby Wagner pushed me on my ass.
All right, it's so fun. All right, so let's move on then to our listener questions. Hold on one second while I get those pulled up. Oh, so sorry. Sorry. There it is. All right. So we're going to start out with, let's see. Where are you? Chris, our good friend, Chris Lawton, who always listens and always is such a support. And we appreciate him so much. He said, should the Ravens have gone for the field goal? Shona, do you know about this one?
Yeah. So I noticed a really stupid, ridiculous, stat from the NFL. I don't know if it was the NFL. It was like the Ravens are the first team since like 1998 to be within 5 yards of scoring, and then they let the other team score to win. And I'm like, that just has so many conundrums and so many like complicated like scenarios to it. Like I don't really know why we're tweeting it because it can easily happen. I think they should have gone because to be honest, they let the Bills back in. Like they were miles ahead, and that was the issue before the field goal. I think you can maybe make it around that they should have scored the field goal, but they were so far ahead that they shouldn't have let the Bills back in the way they did. Personally,
right. So interestingly enough, I read the quote from John Harbaugh, head coach of the Ravens, afterwards, and his logic was basically this. It said that they were on the 2-yard line, they were about to score, and the thought was that the Bills had come back and were playing so well that they really felt the touchdown put them in a better position to win, because then there would be enough time for the team to then have to work its way back and maybe get a field goal, and they'd be stuck in a tie again. And so that was his logic behind it. Oh, and if they didn't get it, that meant the Bills had to start on the 2-yard line. Well, that's exactly what happened. And yet they still managed to march down far enough and get the field goal. So I get the calculated risk, right? Like, I understand that a little bit. At the same time, in a game that's so back and forth and it's so tight like that, I think you have to take the points. You have to take the points. So, would I, as a Ravens fan, be irritated they didn't take the points? Yeah, because then anything can happen in overtime, right? But at the same time, I kind of get his logic behind it, especially because of the way the Bills were playing. So we will see. All right. Our next fan question is from, I am so sorry. I'm just going to say C. C is the first name. So first question was about the Dolphins, and we talked about that quite a bit. So his second question, his or her, I don't know. Eagles. The Eagles are off to a great start. What keeps them consistent in doing this? And I'm going to say 2 words: Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, staying in command, staying healthy, keeping control of that offense and that defense playing as well as it is. I love you, Brandon Graham. Then yeah, I think that's all they need to do, especially in that division. They just look that dominant right now.
I completely agree. Like I said, like we just talked about it. I'm gonna stand on that hill. He is the best QB out of that draft class, and I know you have really good. I love him at the Chargers.
Herbert, Justin Herbert. Yeah.
His name literally just flew out my head. I love him, and I think he's great too. But I think, like you just said, he's commanding that offense and he's making that completely his own. It is like he's always been the Eagles so at the moment, and I think that's just the consistency that he's bringing to that team.
I think so. I love it. All right. So this last question from the same person is about the Raiders. Have they finally figured it out after beating the Broncos? Shona, I'm going to let you go first on this one because I have kind of a long thought on it.
I quite like the Raiders team this year. Like I think they're quite fun to watch. And I know Derek Carr gets a lot of stick, but I think he's better than Captain Beige. I'm gonna just put that out there. He's he's the guy that you would want as a quarterback if you're a Raiders fan, for me anyway. And I think he works for that system and that how they want to play moving forward. And I mean, personally, I loved the result on Sunday. It was a thing of beauty. But I think they worked out how the Broncos were going to play, and they completely nullified it. And I think going forward, if they could do that with other teams and play the way that they want to play and continue the way that they do want to play, because it's very exciting the way they create their offense and defense, I think they could definitely go further.
Here's my thought on this. This was a big game for Josh McDaniel, right? Brand new head coach, hadn't won a game yet with the Raiders, had once been a head coach for the Broncos, right? And so really wanting to beat that team probably had a factor in it. But here's what I think that we have to remember is that we have a brand new head coach, brand new coaching staff, implementing a completely different type of system, right? Josh McDaniels is a Bill Belichick devotee, right? Like he is his student and master, Yoda and Luke sort of a situation, right? And so Belichick, he's trying to implement some of that, I'm sure with his own twists, into that. Against, I mean, you just had a completely defensive-minded, situation the last couple of years. And so I find it interesting that people weren't giving them a little bit of wiggle room. It was, oh, they're horrible. Well, they're not horrible. Yes, they let the Cardinals back into that game, and that was just a disaster. But I guarantee you they learned a lot from that game. But I just really feel like it just was going to, this was one of those teams that was going to take the 4 to 6 weeks to figure out who they were. And you saw it. You saw them use their running back. Oh my God, so beautifully. Thank God I had him on fantasy. And then you also saw Devontae Adams. They started to figure out how to use them and how to switch up his routes and the scheme for that. Derek Carr feeling comfortable with the offense. And then that defense coming in and showing who they are. I think that this is the perfect example of teams that take 4 to 6 weeks to settle in. And I think we're going to see a lot more from the Raiders from this point forward. It almost just felt like a click with them. And there's a lot of people said, well, it's Denver and Denver's struggling and, Russ isn't playing up to the way he's supposed to. And actually, Russ didn't play horrible in that game, you guys. There was a lot of other issues in that game, but it just seemed like the flow was finally there for the Raiders. And that makes me happy because I expected them to actually play really, really well in that division this year. So we'll see. But all right, those are our fan questions this week. You guys, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you go over to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and then you'll know when we go live. We are here every 2 weeks. We do every other week. I hate saying do. I'm so sorry I just said that. But we are here every other week on Tuesdays, 5 o'clock in the UK, noon on the East Coast of the States. And so you can just come out and hang out with us throughout the day. If you guys have any listener questions, we ask for listener questions every single week. You can come over on the YouTube channel into the chat, post a question there. We will answer it live on the air and let you interact with us. So thank you guys so much. So that is it for us for End Zone Scoop this week, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.